On Friday, Friday at lunch? Okay, test is Wednesday. Does everyone have the review list then? The list of terms? Everyone has that? Friday. Shortened periods. We have 40-minute periods. We go through it first through fifth right in a row. So you guys are gonna be starving fifth period. It's like Pavlov dogs. You've been trained to eat out of fourth.
Wait, between fifth and sixth
is lunch.
I have the same class with it.
Wait, why?
Because we have assembly.
We have an assembly after 6. And what am I? And at lunch, what am I going to show? The Festivus documentary. Yes, the documentary on the history of Festivus. It will also involve 3 other stories. They intertwine with it to show how they all relate, and they all come together at the end with a happy ending involving feats of strength and the airing of the grievances. Okay. So let's go ahead and take your notes out. We got to get the Reconstruction. We have a lot to cover today in a short time to cover it. Oh, the Reconstruction thing. I told the other classes tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh my God. You actually said no.
And so I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll collect it tomorrow if you want to look at it again. If you did get it done, I'll take it today. Which would you rather do?
No, I couldn't figure out. I just don't want to lose it.
I don't know. Okay, can we ask for help? Wait, like turn.
Then tomorrow tomorrow I'm going to ask questions about it. Let's just hold on to it. I'll collect it tomorrow. All right. So I think I wasn't clear. You know, I'm trying to get. That's one problem. I'm trying to get like 3 things done at the same time. You should multitasking is not possible. It doesn't work. Well, you can do it. You just do everything poorly.
Yeah.
All right, so Reconstruction. So we got Andersonville Prison, right? And what happened to the commandant of Andersonville Prison? Yeah. He was executed. Where did Lee surrender? Appomattox Courthouse. And what is it called when everybody's a combatant? Take the war to the civilians, make them suffer. Total war. Who was the general who did that in Georgia? Someone said Sherman, yeah. Sheridan did in the Shenandoah. They're classic examples. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but one thing about this, after the Civil War, when it came time to conquer the plains and pacify the Plains Indians once and for all, who were the commanders? Grant, Sherman, Sheridan. And where did they learn to fight? Total war in the Civil War. And that's the war they brought to the plains. Economic war destroyed. Okay, so let's get to Reconstruction. And Reconstruction is a few things down here, but Reconstruction is literally the rebuilding of the South. But don't think in terms of stuff was damaged in the war, let's rebuild it. It's much more complex. And I put it up here the main things. But the big element of Reconstruction is how the South is going to be brought back into the Union. Once, especially after 1862, once with the Emancipation Proclamation, the former states that made up the Confederacy, I guess they're still states, but the Confederacy, they just can't be allowed back in. There's got to be a process, and that's Reconstruction. Also, the entire economic system of the South is blown up. They had a warped form of capitalism where their capital was human labor. Humans. Well, they're free. But think about the economic disruption. All of that wealth that planters once had, gone. And it's more than just money. Do you remember when I talked about slavery before? What were they using the slaves for? Well, to pick the cotton to do the work. But what else economically? Financially. Collateral for debts. They're using slaves to borrow money. All of a sudden, the collateral's gone. Do they have to pay back their debts right away? Heck, all the planters went to default. What they would have said back then is receivership. We call it bankruptcy. They all did. Every one of them. They lost everything. If you had a little bit of money, went down to the South in 1866, you could buy anything you wanted. There's just nothing there. The economic system was crushed. Also, the political system. What about former Confederates? Are freedmen going to have the right to vote? Also, who's going to be in charge of this? States or the federal government? That's a key element. All right, it's basically the states, okay, you can reconstruct your stuff and come back in, or is the federal government going to dictate? I think it's pretty clear it's going to be the federal government, at least at first, because the federal government won the Civil War. The Union survived. And one more thing, the entire social structure of the South. What is going, well, what will the position of freedmen be? How will they be treated? Will they be equal citizens? And for that matter, what about the strict class structure the South had, with planters on top, etc.? Now, don't do your work now, John. But one thing we got to get about Reconstruction. These are some of the things they were talking about when Reconstruction started. But it's clear one thing we have to get. Reconstruction that went from approximately 1864 to 1877. 1864 to 1877. It would become a noble yet unfulfilled effort to give equal rights to freedmen, to give equal rights to blacks. They really tried. It would become a noble effort, a real effort to bring equality. Okay, I'm betraying my bias. I believe very highly in equal rights. Well, so you might say they do, but they don't. So it was a noble effort. They really did try. They passed a number of civil rights laws that they thought would guarantee rights. They made 3 constitutional amendments because of this. One would change everything about the Constitution, the 14th Amendment. They really tried, but it's tragic because then it would be abandoned, unfulfilled, and would get worse. In fact, after Reconstruction, after the Civil Rights Act of 1875, there would not be another attempt to bring equal rights until 1957 Congressional. And that one, there would be a law passed, but it basically was worthless. Wouldn't be until 1964 till there'd be a real Civil Rights Act. When you think about it. Yeah, Martin Luther King, because he would become one of the most famous, but what pushed him more than anything else were African Americans who fought incredibly hard to force people to pay attention to what was going on. And it hasn't really been fulfilled to this day. Legally, for the most part, not completely, but for the most part, people have equal rights, but there are holes in it, huge holes. And we'll get to some of these as we go on.
What was that first Civil Rights Act, like the
1864 to 1877. So basically, it started during the Civil War and ended with the Compromise of 1877, the election, the inauguration of Hayes. Now, we have to start with Lincoln. And the thing about Lincoln is this. Lincoln would start Reconstruction during the war, and this would be a wartime measure. Lincoln wants to make it look like the United States is winning. So Lincoln is going to do his 10% plan. So I have this up here, I hope. While we're waiting for this, do you want to hear how I nearly killed the guy?
Yeah.
If you go down 6th Avenue, you know where 6th Avenue is when it goes downtown to Last Chance Golf? And that was literally a sheet of ice. Well, I didn't quite get to the hill. I'm coming up to the hill and go down. So I'm getting there and I know I'm slowing down, I'm getting ready to slow down. And I get right to, the truck starts going over, and there was this guy walking down the middle of my lane. And I didn't see him until I literally started going down the hill. And he was about, I don't know, maybe 30 feet in front of me. And I was going slow, thankfully. But I hit the brakes, right? Well, what did my truck do? Start to spin. I spin 2 times. Yeah. And the guy, thankfully, no one's coming the other way. And I honked because I was spinning and going down. And the guy and he didn't quit walking. I wonder if obviously this guy had issues, but all the way, and then I kind of got control of my car and I kind of rode into a bank, snowbank, and stopped. Then I kind of backed up and had to go around the guy. He never got out of the road.
Oh my God.
Huh?
It's like sad for people.
Yeah, clearly something was wrong, but yeah, I couldn't see him. So I went to start going down the hill. And it was still dark, and it's really fun when the car spins and you're on it. I love that feeling. You just kind of.
I almost died on Thanksgiving because that happened when I was entering the interstate and I like spun around like 3 times and then like almost landed in the ditch. What?
That's awesome.
She was just angry.
Somebody cut me off. And it took me like, I left my house 15 minutes early so I could get to school in time, and it took me 15 minutes. Like I was. 15.
Okay, so back to this. Lincoln, this was a wartime measure. It was very lenient Reconstruction. The whole goal was to get states back into the Union as quickly as possible. So it's called the 10% plan because of this. And I did not mean for this to do this. Yeah. But if 10% of the voting age population from 1860 did an oath saying they're loyal to the United States, then they would get Reconstruction. And this was passed in 1863. The whole point was the states would be reconstructed of 10% of the voting age population. This is almost nothing. They know they could get 10%. There were 3 states that could do it in 1864, so they could claim, look, we're bringing these states back into the Union. We are winning the war. Basically, you don't need to know them. Like, they call them Lincoln governments. Louisiana, Tennessee, and Arkansas, because those are states that much of them have been readmitted to the Union, whatever. This was a wartime measure. I repeat, wartime to make it look like we're winning, also for the election of 1864. The problem with Lincoln's 10% plan was it's still basically the plan when he was assassinated. We don't know what he would have done. Certainly. In fact, it's without a doubt that he would have pushed for something different because this is way too lenient. Amnesty basically means that people, if you do an oath to get amnesty, you will not be arrested for being a traitor. That's amnesty. But we don't know. We don't know. Yeah.
What was the plan? Like they 10% or
If 10% did an oath, the people who did the oath would get an amnesty and the state would be Reconstruction.
yeah, they pledged to do it.
Yeah, they would pledge to the Constitution, pledge to the United States. Well, a few congressional Republicans were furious with Lincoln. They thought, no, it's going to allow for the Confederates right back in. It's going to be a disaster. And frankly, they did not understand what Lincoln was doing. They didn't understand that this was a wartime measure. And so that's where you get the Wade-Davis bill. Don't write all the details of the Wade-Davis bill. Just basically what it was is Lincoln would pocket veto a stronger bill. But basically, I just put this up there so you get an idea. So you get the Wade-Davis bill. It was a strong, tougher Reconstruction bill. 50% had to do the oath and then to prove they weren't a Confederate. They had to change their Constitution, guarantee the rights of freedmen. You don't need to know the details. Just you need to know that it was a stronger or tougher Reconstruction bill. But Lincoln, he knew that this would be controversial in the election. He also knew that we worry about this stuff after the war is done. We got to win the war first. This might encourage the South to fight harder. These are two, well, he was an abolitionist. He was more of a free soiler. Oh, pocket veto. President signs a bill, it becomes law. President doesn't sign it, that's a veto. But a pocket veto is this. Congress adjourned. The members of Congress went home. Right before they went home, they presented President Lincoln with this bill. What did Lincoln do? Ignored it. Once the session's over, the bill died. So he technically didn't officially veto it, he just ignored it. That can't happen today. Because Congress is always in session today. But back then, guys had to go home. It took a long time. So, Lincoln was one more bill we have to get. 2 more bills, I'm sorry. One of Lincoln's last and probably his most impressive legislative maneuver, of course, because he didn't really have to do it, the way he did it, would be to usher the 13th Amendment through 2/3 of the Congress in early 1865, but then it would be ratified by 3/4 of the state in 1865, and that was, as you can see, got rid of slavery. He wanted it ratified with the Congress that was elected back in 1862. If he would have waited until the Congress that was elected in 1864 would have sat, it would have passed easier. But he wanted that victory. It was really important to him. Has anyone seen the movie Lincoln? It does a fairly good job talking about this. It's a pretty good movie. Is anyone still a couple? Yeah, if you get a chance, watch it. But if you're a prisoner arrested on a felony, you don't have that right. You can be put to work as a prisoner and not be paid. So you can go on the chain gang. We've been on the chain gang. Working on the side of the road, chained at your ankles. Yeah, yeah. Because of all your felonies. And so that still exists. Now you notice it doesn't say anything about citizenship. It doesn't say anything about voting. It doesn't say anything except slavery over. That's all the 13th Amendment. Ironically, when the original 13th Amendment proposed, you remember back in 1860, it was going to be to protect slavery forever. Ironically, it would be the amendment to get rid of slavery. And that does remind me of a chain gang. You'll make work, just make the prisoners work. Well, you are going to have a Festivus assignment over the Festivus break, correct? And I know a lot of you are happy for that, and I agree. But I have to do that because we have to be done with everything by May 8th, correct? So after the test, we kind of finish up any loose ends, and then I will make it up for you. Okay? Up to you. Last year, it was all fitness. You guys remember, just running, wall sits, you know, time miles. This year, work. I'm going to put you to work. We're going to go out to Partridge Knoll out there, correct? And what are we going to do? I'm going to point to a spot in the ground, and I'm simply going to tell you, there's dirt in my hole. Get it out. Right? Then you'll dig one day, and the next day, huh? You fill it in. Then we'll find another hole to dig. Yeah. Sound good?
Sure.
That's going to be awesome. No gloves. All right. So, one more very important law that we passed, we create the Freedmen's Bureau. And the Freedmen's Bureau was designed to give some kind of help to the freedmen. Education was one of the biggies, because remember those Nat Turner laws, for the most part, slaves couldn't read, but also a little bit of economic help. That's about it. Mostly Northerners went south. A lot were abolitionists. A lot were disillusioned when they found out how difficult life would be. But this is supposedly showing the North protecting, this is actually more of a military reconstruction one, but I like that, protecting freedmen from rebels. And this is kind of a crucial one, because the Freedmen's Bureau, combined with the 13th Amendment, that's it. Freedmen, the former slaves, got nothing except for their freedom. That's all they got. When the 14th Amendment ratified, they get citizenship, but nothing else. Yeah?
What do they do? That's a job.
We'll talk about it tomorrow. No, they got no compensation for the hell of being a slave. They got no land or nothing. There was talk of 40 acres and a mule. That's what they give all the slaves, taken from the planters. General Sherman actually just did it on his own. No one's going to say no to Sherman, at least at first. But eventually that would be taken away. Freedmen and the descendants have never been compensated, ever, for what they went through. Ever. Nothing. It's actually remarkable. And I wonder if you would be like, I don't want to be compensated for that. That sounds perfectly fine to me. It's actually amazing what has happened with that, looking back at it. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but difficult to make up for that inequality. But that's the Freedmen's Bureau. And here's a school for the Freedmen's Bureau, and I like this picture. showing kids going to school, and also the massive furnace. For some reason, that just always strikes me as like the biggest thing in the entire room, the furnace. And Southerners, whites. Southern whites looked at the Freedmen's Bureau as these invaders. And they gave a very clever name for them, right down, Carpetbaggers. The Carpetbaggers were the Southern view of these people who went down to help the Freedmen's Bureau. And this would become how they would say, oh, look what happened. You give the free slaves, and it says the popular idea of the Freedmen's Bureau. Plenty to eat, nothing to do. They're just lazy, good for nothing. If you don't make them work, they won't work, and they just are giving them food, and they don't work at all. Of course, Freedmen's Bureau is actually very small. This is a Democrat or a Republican politician called Church, one of the most famous politicians of that era. And there he shows him with a carpet bag. Here's one, it's hard to see it, it kind of blocked out. But this is a pro-Southern white view of it, where carpetbaggers coming down, taking advantage of the noble Southerners who fought for independence. Known as that's a wounded soldier. We'll come back to that. It's going to be called the Gone with the Wind myth. So that's carpetbaggers. Got to be clear though, there were some Northerners who went south to take advantage of the fact that land was virtually free. And they could buy plantations for nothing. So there were Northerners who did that, but the vast majority of Northerners who went south were trying to help the freedmen. The vast majority. Now, don't write this up about Johnson. I put down a few things about Johnson when he came in. He called himself a Jacksonian Democrat, and few presidents had more humble background than Johnson. Like Jackson's one of them. Born, family had nothing. Became a tailor, worked his way up to be a skilled journeyman tailor, and eventually become senator. It's incredible. And he looked at this with complete distrust towards the aristocrat. He hated the wealthy plantation owners. Hated them. But he also was a believer in that white republic. As he saw, okay, the slaves are free, but they're not equal. This is a white republic. Later on, the term would be a white supremacist. And I like that quote of him. He wanted Reconstruction to punish that aristocracy that ran the South. He didn't give a damn about the freedmen. Didn't give a damn. As he saw it, they're competitors. Remember we talked about what was the reason why so many poor whites in the South who had nothing, certainly never had a slave, why did they fight so hard in the Civil War for the Confederacy?
For that chance to actually get a slave.
Yeah, they might move up in society, get the slave, and what's the other reason?
Less competition.
Yeah, they don't want that competition for not only economic, but also political rights. Now we're saying we're equal, if we get rid of slavery, I lose something. They always have this, I'm at least white. So, he was one of those. But this is what we have to get down. Johnson, as soon as he became president, would initiate presidential reconstruction. And as he saw it, he's continuing Lincoln's plan. Johnson made it very clear, it's an adapted Lincoln's plan. 10% plan. They get amnesty. But technically, former Confederates, like officials and generals, and also some of the aristocracy, maybe they couldn't get amnesty. Then, states would be allowed in. They had to write a new constitution, got to get rid of slavery, but also say, we're going to pay back our debts. There's all this debt after war. And so, very lenient. Basically what he's saying is, hey, you present to us a new constitution, you get 10% swearing an oath of allegiance to the United States, and you're back in. That's presidential reconstruction. Very, very lenient on the South. It's basically taking Lincoln's 10% plan of the wartime measure and making it the plan for after the war. But it's even more lenient because Johnson was shockingly sympathetic. And very quickly, all the states in the former Confederacy, boom, they're all back in. They all passed these new constitutions. They all claimed to do what they said. They gave it lip service. 10% gave the amnesty or gave the oath. And what happened afterwards, this is by the fall of 1865, you have new governments, and once again, It was almost exactly like it was before the war. They called them Dixiecrat governments. And these ex-Confederates are going to be elected right back in. Ex-Confederates. In fact, we're talking Confederate members of Congress, of the cabinet, and generals who were supposed to be excluded were leaders. Alexander Stephens, the vice president of the Confederacy, in the fall of 1865, was elected back to his old U.S. House of Representatives seat. He showed up in Washington, D.C. expecting to be seated in the House like nothing ever happened. The vice president of the Confederacy. The planter class quickly regained control, and every constitution in the former Confederacy passed a series of laws that every state's gonna be a little bit different, but we call them the Black Codes. And the Black Codes did what to freedmen? Yeah, we can probably come up with different ways to put it, but you know what? That's pretty appropriate. It basically took away every right. You're free, but they gave them no right to move, no right. In fact, almost every state said former slaves had to remain on the plantation and work, that they were once slaves. Freedom. They couldn't assemble, they limited their education, they couldn't vote. In fact, essentially they were the slave codes. They just took out the word slave. That cartoon, that's showing Johnson as kind of a Shakespearean tragical figure. Tragical? If tragical is not a word, it should be a word. In your next English paper, write that down. This is very tragical. And if any questions what do you say? No. Let's go with Mr. Larson today. Mr. Larson said that's a word. Mr. Carter agreed. Good. Tragedy. This is Richard III. The Shake. Do they do Richard III in English classes? Ah, do some Shakespeare. Richard III is great. It's about during the War of the Roses.
Yeah, I think you've done Romeo and Juliet and then Much Ado About Nothing.
Good ones. Romeo and Juliet, What Much Ado About Nothing. Caesar's good. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear. I know Athens Hello. All right, so the Black Codes. So basically what happened is they just regained control and exploit these now free people to get as much money as they can out of them, try to rebuild the economy. Republicans were furious, absolutely furious in the North. And Republicans are, they're angry. And this is a cartoon showing supposedly they're free. Here's Lady Liberty granting them freedom. And now look at Lady Liberty. What do you notice about Lady Liberty now? That's a good bit to the cartoon. And what's happening? And you notice that vaguely looks like Jefferson Davis, that kind of vague Confederate. And so Congress immediately broke with the president. And we're coming up to a constitutional crisis. Congress would break with them. And what happened was Congress refused to seat those congressmen from the South. Any of them. They said, you're not going to be allowed in. And then Johnson vetoed an expansion of the Freedmen's Bureau and the Civil Rights Bill to guarantee equal rights. He vetoed it. And the first time in history, Congress overrode the veto. Requires 2/3 of the vote. It's never happened before. Presidents rarely veto laws. Overrode 2 vetoes. They became law. And in the 1866 midterm elections, Republicans swept in there. Now, I see some people picking on their teeth right now and probably not getting this down. Okay. And that's bad for your teeth. And we do it again, we're just going to remove them to save the teeth from further wear and tear. I have pliers and a hammer.
There's civil rights stuff
And the Freedmen's Bureau. Okay, vetoed them both. And we're not going to go into detail about the Civil Rights Bill. But, oh, I love this cartoon. First off, Johnson, his head is huge. That's a terrifying head. How does he fit through doors? But the veto, and what's this represent?
Always.
What law? It's probably the Freedmen's Bureau or even the Civil Rights, both of them. And you see the little,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Even though the cartoonist is bashing Johnson, there's still a racist element there, isn't it? And that's going to be part of what's going to undo Reconstruction. And so out of this is going to become, we're good now on this? Congress is going to act. And they're going to pass. Now we switch to Congressional Reconstruction. They're going to, Congressional Reconstruction in 1867, Congress will pass over a presidential veto the Military Reconstruction Act. And this is supposed to be Reconstruction. And we're showing this last period, and I'm still trying to figure out who these are. I think they're supposed to be slaves being freed, but I don't know. Or maybe they're not being, maybe they're being included in the United States. Can someone explain that to me? And these are all famous American leaders. Here's Colombian Lady Liberty. And I think this is supposed to be Jesus, but we're not sure. And there's Lincoln, and there's Washington, and you see that? That's Calhoun. I'm still trying to figure this one out, but I thought it was great. But the Military Reconstruction basically said is this: those Dixiecrat governments, gone. And, yeah.
Wasn't there, I don't know, because I think there was someone who ran against FDR in World War II, who was someone who claimed it.
Yeah, it's actually against Truman. Truman in 1948.
Okay.
It's Strom Thurmond, and the Southern Segregationist Party, they call themselves the Dixiecrats. Yeah, isn't it interesting how that kind of comes back? Now, 5 military districts. 5 military districts. States have got to ratify the 13th and a new amendment we'll get to in a second, the 14th Amendment. If you want to come back into the Union, you want to get rid of the soldiers, ratify these. And, yeah, states can vote, but the military will enroll. That was, okay, today we'd say register, but then it was enroll. Freedmen can vote, and the military will protect them. So you can imagine, to the Southern point of view, this was a military invasion. And think about it now. Ulysses S. Grant, the commander-in-chief of the military, is in charge of Reconstruction. And when Grant becomes president, it's Sherman. So we're talking about people you don't mess with. And that's what would happen. These are the military, the 5. The only state that would, of the former Confederacy, that didn't go under military rule was Tennessee. Tennessee, because of the nature of the way it was, especially in Eastern Tennessee, it had a much more open constitution, so they never had full military rule. So that's how they divided it up. So you'll notice there'll be military rule, but then eventually, you see the years, step by step, these states would do these and come back into the Union, and the military, for the most part, would leave. So it would happen. Also, one more thing. South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, they'd be the last ones. We'll come back to those 3 states. We'll come back to it. So don't worry, I'm just showing you right now. So, what is the 14th Amendment? The 14th Amendment is by far the most important amendment to the Constitution. I would argue it's the most important part of the Constitution. It would dramatically change the relationship between states and the federal government. And the thing is, the only reason this happened, presidential Reconstruction. That radicalized Republicans. Say, we have got to act to guarantee equal rights. So sometimes you see Congressional Reconstruction called radical Reconstruction. But radical is in the eye of the beholder. It's only radical if you believe civil rights is wrong. My book is back. Thank you. Deaths today fall apart. I mean, I'm good back then. These deaths are from the late 80s, and I saved them for you. Have you been to those relatively new deaths where they have just one thing in the back and they're kind of plastic? They're uncomfortable and awful. These are, hey, if you got to be in a desk, these are pretty good, right? toughen up. In my day, you know what I had to sit on? A seat of nails. Nails. I didn't complain.
We have to sit in style in cabs.
The stool is incredibly fun because you literally don't know what to do with your back. It's like,
You just like straight.
So, what did the 14th Amendment do? It guaranteed civil rights for all citizens. Civil rights for all citizens. Basically, this is why it's so important. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, especially that first amendment about freedom or about speech, religion, press, those rights should not be infringed. The Fourth Amendment about legal search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment about habeas corpus. Those kind of laws. Now, those apply to the states. Before 1868, those laws, or those part of the Constitution, did not apply to the state, only federal law. Now, state law cannot infringe your rights. Infringe you rights. So the Bill of Rights apply. Secondly, everybody has equal protection under the law now. And due process under the law. State governments cannot deny you due process. Now there's an issue here. Does it apply to individuals? Or for that matter, is this more just a guideline? Depends on interpretation. This is huge. This is why you have equal protection under the law. The 14th Amendment is the amendment more than any other ones that guarantees individuals within states equal rights. It's the 14th Amendment. So important. Such a big deal. And it's because of what was happening to freedmen, because of presidential Reconstruction and the Black Codes. Next, it defined what a citizen is. Who's a citizen? All men born in the United States or naturalized. So it means that freedmen are citizens. And so that means former slaves are guaranteed these rights. There can be naturalized citizens, but if you're born here or born to American parents, you are a citizen. You notice I had American parents. If your parents are traveling in Canada, let's say, and you're born, you're still American. And the national debt is going to be paid. So the debt incurred in fighting the Civil War is going to be paid partially with tax money from states that were once in the Confederacy. The federal debt is enshrined. In fact, if the United States government does not pay back its debts, it becomes a constitutional crisis. That's one of the reasons why United States debt, the treasury bills, the bonds, are the safest investments in the world today. Because the U.S. has to pay back its debts. Has to. And that's what was a really big deal when, a couple years ago, when Republicans in Congress threatened to not pay back the debt, violating the Constitution. It's actually kind of remarkable that they would write about this, to violate the Constitution. The reason why it's remarkable is because so many claim to be strict proponents of the Constitution. Did you catch? Oh, I gotta add this. This is liberal. This is very liberal. Liberal in this context means rights for all people. Now, liberal, you notice I put a question mark here. Because not only are there loopholes, there's a huge loophole. Who's citizen again? I said it. I didn't say anybody. All men. Women are not guaranteed equal rights under the 14th Amendment. Now, for the most part, the court reads women into that. But no, to this day, women are not guaranteed equal rights under the United States Constitution. Now, by law, women have equal rights, for the most part. But laws can be changed. Women do not have equal rights in the United States Constitution. It's a huge, I was going to say loophole, but it's more like a gray area. It's just undefined. For years, women tried to get an equal rights amendment to get rid of that. It would finally pass Congress and go to the states to be ratified to get 3/4 of the states in 1972. It got really close, but it never got it. It's called the Equal Rights Amendment. All it said is that women there can be no discrimination based upon sex. Most of the southern states. Montana has no discrimination based upon sex in its constitution. That was written in 1971. Montana was one of the first states to ratify, but didn't get enough, and it died in 1982. And so women still are not guaranteed rights, and I'll tell you something else. I guarantee it with 1,000% certitude, it would not pass now. No way. Wouldn't even come close. It wouldn't even win 50% of Congress, let alone 2/3 necessary. Why? Yeah, one party would all vote against it, every one. That's their view. Do you know what party would vote against it? Huh? Republicans. Yeah, all Republicans vote. All Democrats vote. Which party is more conservative? Yeah. So, we'll impeach him, we'll finish Reconstruction, and do a few more things. The test is going to be on Wednesday. Sound good? Okay, you can dress up as the Calhouns, John and Fluoride,
And Raul.
and Raul, the whole Calhoun family, and Ambrose Burnside.
Burnside. Wait, you have a review list?
No, you was not listening when you asked everyone.
How much extra?
I've given up the 50 points.
No way.
Now, if you come, I mean, it's got to be really, really good. Maybe you show up with a couple little things. You got to get your points, but not that.
How do you know if you wear?
And it's very subjective. That's the way life is.
How do you dress up like Flora?
I just need to figure out the neck hair.
Just get like a bonnet.
No, if you get dressed for the 19th century.
Oh,
Yeah.
heck, I have.
And try to, and there's a few pictures online of Flora to try to get your hair, not perfect, but close to that.
I have one.
I work on my lens or see how it goes. I for real have one in the back.
You want to go with Flora? You're gonna go as
John
Oh.
or Raul.
That would be so
How do you
funny.
know?
Well, because it seems like how my hair used to us.
yeah, to get a little light in there.
Because what I was gonna do was just tuck my long hair under, but I
Actually, though, that was a compliment. Where's that now? Long hair was a song. Perfect. Neck hair, though, gotta work on it.